I didn't even have a chance to talk to people I knew. Okay, we're going to do something a little bit different here. And what I'd like to do is to pull up the very first slide. How are you? At some point it'll come up. I can see it in this thing, but it's not up in the monitor. If you guys can pull up the slides in the monitor. There we go. I have prepared 6 presentations for you all. And since you guys got here on time, I can't get to all of them. So you're going to determine what you guys will see over the next hour. I wanted to demonstrate that it's not just consumer friendly in rhetoric, it's actually consumer friendly in real life. So, what Americans want is an updated look at what we think about politics, what we think about the economy, and what we think about life. Political ads are 7 of the most impactful, funny, dramatic, powerful ads that have been run so far in the 2014 campaign. Corporate ads are 6 of the best reputational ads, most emotional ads that really do connect with people. The best business words is an updated lexicon for those of you in the business community. What your customers, your communities, what people want to hear from you. Education, that one I'm going to do whether you vote for it or not. That's the language of excellence in education or exceptional education, because I don't want you to be using the words education reform. It doesn't work. And finally, healthcare. It's the biggest issue of 2014, and I've got the language of healthcare that you may enjoy. You only get to choose one of these. I'm going to do a very quick vote. Who wants to see, more than anything else, what Americans really want? Raise your hands, and I should keep a record of these. 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 33 people. Political ads. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we know what people think of politics. Corporate ads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You just killed 6, 7. You killed my whole video presentation. Best business words. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26. Education. 1, 2. Well, it's coming up, but look what 2 people voted for it. And healthcare. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, so if you can pull up first the section What Americans Want, and you guys should know what page that is. First thing I'll tell you about what's going on right now is how frustrated people are in the country. There's a level of anger, a level of cynicism, a lack of trust, and it is deep and it is pervasive. And it doesn't matter whether you're at the lower end of the economic spectrum or at the upper end. We have become very distrusting of people and of institutions. Next slide. I want to ask you a question to begin this. Does the frog live or die? If you had to guess, does the frog live or die? Who thinks the frog lives? Raise your hands. Who thinks the frog dies? Raise your hands. You're a bunch of ugly pessimists. If you think the frog lives, stand up. If you think the frog lives, stand up. Only those people who are standing, you are correct, but I want to know why you think the frog lives. Why does the frog, stay standing. Why does the frog live? You think instinct, not instinct. Down. Why does the frog live? Lori. It's a real frog. It's a real frog. Why does the frog live?
Natural symbiosis.
Natural symbiosis. That's illegal in 48 states. Down. Why does the frog live? Poison frog just means it tastes bad. Wrong. Why does the frog live? The alligator is not fake. Why is the frog? But you're heading there. Why does the frog live? He's comfortable with the danger. That would make it a really dumb frog. Why does the frog live? He's not that fast. Down. Why does the frog live? Alligator isn't healthy, but that's another point. What? Bingo. He got it right there. The alligator's dead. The most important thing I can tell you, and if you remember only one thing from this presentation, remember this. It is not what you say that matters, it's what people hear. It is not your language, it is how it is received. There's a reason why I do this like this, why I move around, why I won't stand behind a podium, why I like this opportunity to do give and take. I want you to focus on the consumer. I want you to focus on the community, the shareholder, the person. For you guys standing there, if you want to come in, there's an entire front row right here. For you guys, like every seat is open up here. Always focus on the person you're trying to talk to rather than what you're trying to say. That's what connects to people. Next slide. The reason why there's such anger, the reason why there's such frustration is because we were promised things that we never received. This idea of expectations, that we thought that life would be better for our children. We thought that things would get better over time. They don't. They haven't. And we've now had year after year of these expectations being delayed or denied. And it makes us angry and frustrated. Next slide. In 2012, we asked this question: are you better off than your parents? Will your kids be better off than you? Only 12% expressed that they're worse off than their parents. 44%, almost half of Americans, back on election day 2012, were worse off, felt that their kids would be worse off. Now look at it. Next slide. When these numbers came back, and this is from about 3 weeks ago, I'm not supposed to use bad language in here. I promised Milken that I never would, but honestly, I looked at this and I said, oh shit. Only 26% think their children or the next generation is going to be more successful. 1 out of 4, and now half of Americans think that it's really bad and things are going to get worse for their kids. How do you have investment? How do you have innovation? And by the way, people like you are doing the most amazing things. I now have more power in my hand than people had in their entire lives 20 years ago. We should be the most optimistic, the most forward-thinking. We should be so excited about what the next great innovation is going to bring us. And instead, we're miserable. We're miserable as a country. Next slide. One of the things that we've learned is that people will make an investment. They will look towards the future if it is a commitment for their children. Now, I do a lot of work in sports, and one of the things that I found is if you want to sell tickets, if you want to get people engaged in sports, you do it through mom, and you do the child to mom. If the child looks at the camera and says, look, I'm not perfect, I didn't make my bed, I know sometimes I ignore you, but mom, I really want to go to a game, and I want you to go with me. Let's go see the Dodgers, and I'll tell you what, for a day, I'll appreciate it, but I'll remember this for a lifetime, and we will build great memories together. What do you say, mom? You do the child through mom, not dad, by the way, because dad's going to say no. Mom's going to say yes if the child makes the request. Next, and by the way, this is Q&A, so if you guys got a question or you want to challenge anything, I'll respond to anything here. The lights are bright, so I might not see you. Yes, go ahead. And do you need to mic when they ask a question, or if I repeat it, is it okay? I'll just repeat it. Go ahead. The question is, you get to adults through their children, but you won't get to them through other children. And that's why we are all, it's that phrase, it sounds biblical. We are all our brothers and sisters' keepers. If a child fails, we all suffer. If a child is left behind, we all feel the impact. You take a specific child and then you compare it to what happens to society, and most of Americans do believe that. It is the one, we are willing to raise taxes for kids. It's just that the campaign, and I'll get to when I get to education, the campaigns have been so pathetic. They talk about transparency, not accountability. They talk about giving kids arts and music and theater. Well, I'll tell you something. Is anyone here 60 years of age, older, white, male, and Republican? Raise your hands. Well, he is back there. They are not going to vote to give kids arts classes. Ain't gonna happen. But that was the campaign that they ran in Colorado. Very frustrating. So you made the right point. It's just that the messaging is wrong, not that the idea is wrong. We've learned something, and for those of you who are taking notes, it's not the answer that matters, it's the question. If you ask the right question, that's where you get the value in communication. I learned this for the last few years. You get the question right, you will get the answer right. And the number one question that Americans are asking right now has nothing to do with them and everything to do with the country. Will things for America ever going to get better? Only the second question, will I be able to afford to do what I want? And look at the third question, will America be the same country 20 years from now? All the questions that come next, affording health care, will things ever get better? Will I be able to afford to retire? Will I be happy? They're all personal questions. Number one and number three is about the country. And this has not happened in modern times, that we are more focused and more fearful about what's happening in America than we are what's happening in our own lives. And that is a significant change. There are seats right up here if you guys want to come. They can move together. You can grab a couple seats here in the second row. Next slide, please. And it's the reason why we're so angry. When 72% of Americans say that they're mad as hell and not going to take it anymore, we've never had that level of anger, that level of frustration. And it causes this bitterness that I, for one, cannot deal with. I do not know how to function in politics today because you cannot have a civil conversation between a traditional Democrat and a traditional Republican without it breaking down. It's very frustrating. Next, please. These are the 7 attributes that matter most. For those of you in business, and by the way, we've got seats here in the third row if they come in from that side, and we have seats in the 5th row over here. These are the attributes that matter most. It's not about taxes or budgets or Social Security. It's not about regulation or litigation. These are day-to-day concerns. So we ask the American people, what do you want more of that you don't have enough of? And these are the top 7 attributes. And because I only have an hour, I usually go through a routine here. I will tell you that men chose money first and women chose time first. But each of these matters more because these are our day-to-day concerns. These are what we're trying to get more of desperately, and we don't have enough of. Next slide. Even the American dream, even the definition of the American dream has changed. It used to be about freedom, and now it's about money. And what a tragedy that is. And by the way, one segment of society, and Milken talks about this a lot, one segment of society chooses home ownership as the #1 definition of the dream. Who do you think it is? Hispanics, exactly. Hispanics or Latinos. By the way, we're in California, so it's Latino here. If we're in New York, it's Hispanic. Owning your own home, #1. So Anheuser-Busch, one of the great marketing companies of all time, produces the most amazing ad. This young woman, she walks into the room and she's in tears, she's crying, and she's got a suitcase under one arm and a plant under the other. And her mother's crying, and her father's crying because she's leaving home for the last time. So she goes out the door, shuts it behind her, goes down the stairs into the street, across the street, to the house right across the street from her parents. She opens the door, there's no furniture inside. She goes to the refrigerator, there's a 6-pack of Budweiser in bottles because that's how Latinos want to drink their beer. So she holds it up to the camera and she says, "Mi casa." End of ad, all in Spanish. If you're a Latino, living across the street from your parents is the American dream. I'm Jewish. Living across the street from my mother is the American nightmare. Let me get to the joke. Who here is Jewish? Raise your hands. Don't raise your hands. Have you not learned anything from history? Every time someone has asked you that question, it hasn't worked out for us. If you saw the movie, our character doesn't make it to the end. Next slide. It's not security, because security means, and by the way, we still have seats in the front row. We have seats in the second. The third row has got the most empty seats here. Enjoy. It's not security, because security means you need a fence or a dog. These are very specific words. It is about peace of mind. Peace of mind means that you can close your eyes and drift away and have no fear. Security means you need a dog, you need a fence, you need something. Peace of mind says that you've got it and life is perfect. Next slide. The other thing we're looking for is the good life. I know about opportunity. Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Describe your methodology.
Could I describe the methodology? We do, in a typical year, about 75 surveys, about one and a half per week. And the typical sample size is anywhere from 1,000, which is a 3% margin of error, up to about 15, maybe 2,000, which is down to about 2.5%. Nationwide sample, all adults. If I'm doing politics, it's registered voters. In this case, this is everybody. And these are the words and the communication that work. Most of the work that we do is online because it allows us to give people 10, 12, 15 different choices. And then we make sure that the sample is weighted for ethnicity, weighted for age, weighted for income and education, because socioeconomic status is important, and this is what we get. Next. So the good life matters. So then we wanted to know what bothered people the most. And it is the cost of life. I know it says here cost of living, but in reality it is the cost of life that connects to people even more than the debt. And I want to point out to you income inequality. How many of you in this room believe income inequality is a problem? Raise your hands. Who believes it's not a problem here? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3 people. Let me guess. Romney. You guys related to him? You work for him? It's up to 29%. In fact, income inequality is now as important to people as wasteful Washington spending. So the Republicans will talk about government waste. The Democrats will talk about income inequality. And I urge you, if you're close enough to see the difference between what Republicans think and what Democrats think, look at the difference between income inequality. Only 5% of Republicans pick it as one of their top issues compared to half of all Democrats. 58% of Republicans choose the federal debt as one of the top issues, only 15% of Democrats. Do you know why we're so divided? You know why we're so angry? Because we actually don't agree anymore. There are no conservative Democrats. There are no liberal Republicans, and so we get this kind of divide. Keep going. Hold on 1 second. Next slide. I actually want to move because I want to get to the next issue. Next slide. 74% of Americans think that there is income inequality in this country. Now watch this. Next slide. They blame you all in the business community more than anybody else. This is the challenge that the business community faces. And this is why I appreciate the Milken Conference so much. It is such a diverse group of people, but it is mostly business. And if it's not, then it's healthcare, and it's science, and it's research. But unless you have an answer for this inequality, you're going to have a problem. And I'm telling you, because the reaction to the business community has never been as negative as it is right now. And so for you guys in the back, I want you now to go to best business words. If you can go to that, and I'll take your question while you switch to that. Here, he's going to send the, you know what, just shout it out. Stand up and shout it out.
When you poll folks on the income inequality question, how do you intersect that with the question about the opportunity issue? Because a lot of folks, particularly on the right, think, okay, the opportunity part is more important than the inequality part, and your questions, or at least the answers, kind of feel to me like you're separating the two. How do you think about that?
I try to separate, I try to look at each issue on an individual basis and then see what impacts it. And what's interesting to me is that even a majority of Republicans think that income equality is a problem. They don't think it's a big problem, but they think it's a problem. The #1 solution to income inequality is welfare reform. It's not raising taxes on the wealthy. It's not raising the minimum wage. In fact, those are way, way down on the list. It's giving people the value of work and undoing the welfare system that was done over, the changes that were done over the last few years. So the Democrats have the issue. The Republicans have the solution, but they're not talking to each other, and so nothing happens. Anything else going on? This is now, bless you, business community. Next slide. Next slide. Half of all Americans have no faith and trust. And by the way, this is where we're going to get to some good language. Half of all Americans have no faith and trust in business right now. None. They believe that CEOs, and one of the problems is that CEOs have such a negative reputation. A business leader is someone who looks to the future. A business leader is someone who solves problems. A CEO looks at the bottom line and is all about profit. I'm actually trying to change the language. If you have the title of CEO, you've got a problem. If you've got the title of CEO, it means that you're interested in money, not personnel, not community, not customers. And you'll see the numbers in a second. Next. So we asked who's responsible. Actually, next slide. Half of all Americans think that you cannot have incremental change. Half of all Americans now think that the actual running of a company has to be significantly different because what has happened up to this point has not connected people. Next. Now, I realize that there's no difference between a business leader and a CEO, but when 86% tell me that they have a better impression of a business leader, that they trust a business leader more, I pay attention to it because it does. It makes a difference. For you guys who are standing there, we've got seats. We got 2 seats right up in front if you guys want to grab them. 86 to 14. Next slide. How many of you work in a company that has at least 1,000 employees? Raise your hands. Each one of you needs to go back, particularly for companies that deal with customers, deal with consumers on a daily basis. And you need to go back and create a position called Chief Ethical Officer or Chief Ethics Officer. If you want to generate genuine trust, it's not about social responsibility, and that's the language that they talk about in business. A good corporate citizen, 21%. Social responsibility, 26%. Ethical business practices, 51%. The business community's language in social responsibility is about 15 years old, and it doesn't resonate. It's only an analysis of what they have done. Ethics, it's about what you do and what you will do in the future. You cannot be trapped in the past. And that's where the lexicon is of all the CSR that goes on and the billions of dollars that are spent, and then they wonder why people don't trust them. Next slide. Profit. I'm sorry, and I really do apologize. And when we got this data, it made me sick. But we think profit is a bad word. When a pharmaceutical company turns in their profits, we think that it's, and I quote, the #1 attribute for pharmaceutical profits is obscene, unquote. We think that they shouldn't be making this much money. We think that these healthcare devices should be given to the public, that people should have the right to all of this great innovation and technology for nothing. So how do you change that? Performance. I know we got Wall Street people in this room. Nobody believes you should be taking a bonus in a time of economic distress. What they do believe is that you should be paid for performance. Bonus is bad. Pay for performance is good. Change the words and you can get the check. Don't change the words and you're going to end up like the CEO of Pfizer, kicked out well before your time. Performance is good. Profit is bad. Next. So what kind of solutions? Practical, pro-growth, progressive, no. Common sense, because it's the #2 attribute that we think is missing in corporate America, the second highest, and efficient and effective. What is the attribute the American people want more out of business than anything else? What's the value that they're looking for that they're not getting? Any ideas? Anything? I can't hear you. What value are we not getting out of corporate America that we want more of? Not growth. Not jobs. We don't have trust, so how do we get trust? Honesty. Oh, please. Corporate America? Not fairness. Transparency. Who said transparency? Get out. That is the worst word because nobody knows what it means. Accountability. You said transparency. I know what you meant. Accountability we get. It means that we can choke The CEO, we can hold these people accountable for what they promise us. Transparency is an accounting term. Accountability is what they're looking for, and common sense is number 2. Next. In terms of how we want to be treated, well served even beats valued. Well served says that they respect us, that they appreciate us. The idea of a servant's culture is really powerful. And I know that respect, and you're going to hear me talk about respect often, but I never realized that this idea of that servant's culture is so deeply ingrained in American consumerism, and it isn't practiced by most businesses. Next. Visuals. This is where I always get into trouble. We asked a question, what visual most communicates American pride and patriotism more than anything else? And this is the number 1 answer. Where is this made? Where is she made? France, and yet we think of her as being American. By the way, she's got one arm up holding the torch. When I think of the French, I kind of think something more like this. So I told that joke in Hong Kong because I'm an idiot and I'm trying to get a laugh out of somebody. And there are a couple guys from France that are sitting in front of me, and they were really angry. And so I come off the stage. I'm mic'd like I am here. So I come off the stage, and I'm going to go shake their hands. The problem is I'm listening to them talk to each other, and all I can think of is Peter Sellers and the Pink Panther. So I start to laugh. They're totally offended. They got up, and they walked right out the center aisle. And I had to say something. So I said, you see the French? They're always in retreat. The Germans thought that was the funniest thing they ever heard. And I thought it was funny that I'm entertaining Germans when I'm Jewish. So it's kind of this global thing. You see that picture? You don't see her face, but you don't need to. The Statue of Liberty at daybreak. The sun is coming up, a new dawn, a new beginning. So much of your visuals in corporate America are so boring. That's powerful. Next slide. Next slide. I put them to sleep. I work for the National Guard. The moms, I don't know how many of you have kids here who are in their late teens or early 20s. And when your sons or daughters want to go into the National Guard, it makes you very nervous. We showed this picture to moms and they started to cry. A single photo, not a whole bunch of pictures, one photo, one visual connected to people, and that more than anything. I don't know if you can see, the boy is missing his leg, and that soldier is helping him walk. And if you see the picture closely, the child's tiny hands are being held by that soldier, and moms and their attitudes towards the National Guard completely changed seeing this picture. Next slide. I don't know, is he here? This gentleman in this picture is standing back there. That's his daughter. He serves this country in the Navy. He flies F-18s. Thank you for being here. Look at how powerful that is. And now what you would do in this is you would not put any, I put a caption because I wanted you to understand that there is no caption. That it is what it is, and words just make it weaker. Next. Best ad for people under age 30. For those of you who are young, congratulations for getting in here. I wonder who paid for you to be here. I can't afford it, and I'm old. You don't know what ethnicity she is. You don't know what age she is. You just know that she loves the music. If you're 25 years old, you don't think in color, and you don't think in gender. You do if you're 55, and you're trying to figure out what she looks like. The #1 ad for young people over the last dozen years is this one for the iPod. Next. Travel, tourism. It's all about understanding how it makes you feel, which is another point. And I get criticized for this because they say that I appeal to emotion rather than ration. But you know what? It is about emotion. It's not how people make you think, it's how they make you feel. And look at the shot on the right. She's got a drink in her hand, she's in a hammock, she's between 2 palm trees, she's looking up at the sky. Every woman sees this picture and says, I want to be in that hammock. Every guy sees this picture and says, I want to be in that hammock with that woman. It works for everybody. It relates to everybody. It is aspirational because that is visually the definition of relaxation. Next. Best photo, and you're going to think that I'm a Green Bay Packer fan because of the two photos here. You ask fans what they want, the idea that they can participate in the celebration, #1 photo we've ever tested in football, because the fans are actually part of the game. The #2 photo is this one. Next. Look at the boy's face. That is the definition of joy. That kid, the happiness is just incredible. And the connection between the child and the star is meaningful. It's a physical connection. I don't have the picture here. What is the most powerful? Anyone here in healthcare? No healthcare people. So the most powerful healthcare shot is the nurse's 2 hands holding the patient's hands, looking at the patient with a gentle smile. It is not the doctor. The doctor may be the person who's delivering the care, but the nurse is the advocate for the patient. It is why nurses beat doctors in lawsuits again and again. They have more credibility. They're more believable because we think that they're more compassionate. And you have that photo, and that's the connection. Next. Best visual for a soft drink, for those of you who are in consumer products. The beverage is just leaping out of the glass. You can taste it, you can feel it. That's power. That's communication visually. Next. We're always looking at what is the best workplace. For those of you, if I got HR people in here, it's a diverse audience. And they're celebrating her. And there's genuine joy in her reaction. Now let me show you the worst. Next. See the guy in the middle? Nobody wants to work next to him. And by the way, I've listened to some of you here who are on Wall Street. You are him. You never have an individual shot when it comes to workplace environment. Never, never, never. That is how bad, that is the workplace at its worst. We want a team environment. We want a collaborative environment. We don't want to work alone. Next. The best ad that we've ever tested, we do a lot of work for nuclear. The one on the left, it's not the language, it's the boy and the dog. I don't care what you're selling. You put a boy and a dog in the picture and moms are going to read it. It could be for laxatives. It could be for hemorrhoidal cream. A boy and his dog, and they're going to read that ad because, once again, it says that there is joy there. It's positive. And I want to make this point, so much of communication is negative. It doesn't have to be that way. Just because the political people haven't figured out how to do it correctly, you, in your messaging and communication, you have to be, if you really want to connect for the long term, you have to be aspirational first, and only after you've given them the positive do you go and give them the consequences. Next. Okay, specific language, go on. You talk about, and this is where, again, some of you are going to criticize me for it. You relax environmental standards by 3 to 2, the public says no. You relax government regulations in terms of energy by 3 to 1, the public says yes. An environmental standard is a safety net, a regulation is a bureaucracy. It has the same consequence, but you see what happens when you phrase it correctly? Next. By the way, you got to take me off that screen because I'm fat as shit. You don't understand because you're looking at me here. I'm looking at that damn video up there and I'm thinking, why the hell did I have that second ice cream sundae? There, you see? Thank you. If you talk about law enforcement, half of Americans will spend more money. If you, I really believe, I know it's true. I know I'm fat. I hate it. Do any of you watch Fox News? Raise your hands if you watch Fox. Okay, thank you very much. Raise your hands if you watch CNN. Still? You're like the only one. Because you're here not watching it, the ratings went down 40%. Who watches MSNBC? Get out. By the way, one more time, who watches MSNBC regularly? 1, 2, 3, 4. Living proof that MSNBC has more letters in its name than viewers. I told that joke on Chris Matthews, and I got fired the next day, but it was worth it. Actually, I got fired because the question was, name the largest mammal that swims. What's the answer? Not a whale, Ted Kennedy. Law enforcement, 51%. That's the process. Halt the rising crime rate, 68%. Law enforcement's process, rising crime rate is result. Why do you in business always communicate process and not result? Why don't you communicate outcome, measurement, instead of how you do what you do? Next. You talk about welfare. By 2 to 1, they think we spend too much. But by 7 to 1, they think we spend too little on assistance to the poor. What the hell is welfare? Again, we don't like the name of the program, but we love what it does. We believe in what it does, and so we want to help people. Next. So, the number one attribute for you all in this room, problem solvers, from beginning to end. And for you guys who are standing over there, and for you all who are standing up there, there are seats in the front. There are 2 seats right here, and there are 3 seats right there. If you want to come, you're welcome to them. Problem solver. You go back to it again and again. This is the challenge, and this is the solution. Next. The attributes that they want from business, if I had to summarize it in 3 words, and all this is poll-driven. Efficient, effective, and accountable. Efficient because we want to do more with less. And by the way, for energy, this is it. Efficient, doing more with less, because we assume that thanks to science and technology, we can accomplish that. Effective, because we want to know that whatever is spent and invested will yield results. And accountable, because if you make promises that you don't keep, someone has to pay a price. Next. Stop using metrics or measurements. I know this is milking. Nobody talks that way except for you here. It's about results. All I heard in the last 24 hours is metrics, and that doesn't relate to anyone unless you went to MIT. Change the language. Next. The idea, social health, employee health, healthy schools, healthy neighborhoods. This is not about the Affordable Care Act. We believe that a healthy environment, a healthy fill in the blank, is the highest aspiration we can achieve. And it's good for families and good for communities and good for the future. Take the word health and grab it for what you're doing and how you do it. Next. Stop with the promises and pledges. It drives me nuts. In the business community, I see it on TV at least 1 ad a night. I pledge or I promise. That's what politicians say. That's what used car salesmen say. They want a commitment from you, not a promise or pledge. Next. Evidence. Who here are my lawyers? Where are my lawyers in this room? I can't believe it. I only have 3 lawyers in this room. Do you know why I like Dick Cheney? He could have shot the dog. He could have shot the truck. He shot the lawyer. And he got the lawyer to apologize for being shot. Awesome. When you guys use the word evidence, there's evidence for the prosecution and evidence for the defense. It's fact. And if you're doing it in writing, it's FACT : in capitals, all caps. I'm looking at advertising. Some of you have been involved in corporate takeovers. Some of you have been involved in lawsuits. When you capitalize FACTS : they will believe it. They will trust it. Because it's then not your opinion, it's a fact. There's nothing to argue over. This is so easy. I read in the Wall Street Journal so many ads that are a waste of money because there's no way that they're actually going to read the ad because it's just a bunch of paragraphs and it's just words thrown on a page. Facts are what they're looking for. By the way, you need 3 of them. 1 is simply random. 2 is a trend. 3 facts in a case prove your point. It's how we tell jokes. It's how we connect to each other. It's how we believe each other. When you show them 3 facts in a situation, they're going to trust whatever else they read. Next. I know we talk about the American dream and dream about a better future. The fact is, we imagine it, we don't dream it. And the word imagine is the most powerful word in the entire English language. Let's say that a company wants to develop a large piece of land. And let's say that it's going to employ 30,000 people. Let's just use that as an example. Imagine the opportunity that this business will provide hardworking families across the community. Imagine the choice of employment, of careers, not just jobs, because a job is something you do 9 to 5. A career is something that you love. I get up in the morning at about 5:30, and I'm usually working till 1 or 1:30 at night, and I don't think I've ever actually worked a day. And it's insane, and I send emails at all hours of the day, of the night, on weekends, all the time. I don't work. It's not even a career for me. I love it. I love what I do. A job is when you work at a fast food place and you hate it and you do it for the check. A career is a life of excitement and energy and curiosity. We should be talking about careers, not jobs. So if I imagine the careers that will be created from that, if I can imagine it, then I can support it. When you ask people to imagine something, that's how they're developing it in their head, particularly with education, more than any other issue. And we're going to do education in about 4 minutes. When you ask people to imagine a brighter future, schools are always a part of it, and they're always thinking about kids. Next. My quick, these are the key phrases that work for 2014, and I'm going to do 4 of these. You work hard for your money, we'll work hard to protect it. For those of you in financial services, you can't beat that phrase. I will make you a challenge right here and now. That is the best language you can possibly offer. Whether you're buying stocks, mutual funds, whether you're investing in a house, no matter what you are doing. The idea you work hard for your money is demonstrating respect and appreciation for what they do. We'll work just as hard to protect it, connects you to them. But notice it starts with them, and only the back half comes to you as the business, as the company. Always start with the consumer. The second one up there, no excuses. The ultimate definition of accountability. No excuses says that I'm not going to try to justify when something went wrong. If my motto, my credo, my commitment ends with no excuses, that is my proof that I'm actually going to do it. If you remember only one thing, number 6, it's a cool thing for those of you who ever do interviews. It means that whatever you say next, people are going to write down, people are going to remember. And you only get to do it once. So I've done it already in this presentation. So I can't say if you remember only one thing, say if you remember only one thing. I promise you. You want the quote, you want to control the story, that's the phrase that does it. You deserve. It is the ultimate empowerment. I've heard companies do a consumer's bill of rights. You deserve is even more powerful. You deserve to know that when you turn on the switch, the lights go on. You deserve schools that teach your children everything they need to know to succeed in college, career, and life. Whatever follows, you deserve is the most empowering communication you possibly could have. Next slide. 21 words. I hope that these are big enough for you guys in the back. Again, I'm going to pick out 4 of these. Respecting, protecting hardworking taxpayers. It's not about the middle class. How many of you in this room, raise your hands in this room if you think you're middle class? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, about 20 of you. You raised your hand. You're so full of shit. This guy is not middle class. How many of you are hardworking taxpayers? Raise your hands. Look around. Why are we defining ourselves by class when we can define ourselves when everybody agrees? It's a different way of communicating that's much more universal and much more embracing. And when you talk about respecting them and protecting them, that shows that you appreciate them, that you value them, you will serve them. It changes the dynamic of people that you're talking to. Next, real, genuine, authentic. I don't care which word you use. We've had politicians that have debased our language so much that if you don't add that word, like real accountability, a genuine commitment, an authentic approach, if you don't add those extra words, then whatever you're saying is meaningless. You have to do the extra emphasis. It's another reason why I will not sit back there and I will not stand behind a podium, because I know that you've seen some of this or you've heard people do this before. If I'm not looking at you straight in the eye, you're not going to pay attention. And real, genuine, authentic gets people to pay attention. And one more up here. We have to earn your loyalty. That's the newest phrase of the 21. I'm constantly updating this. About every 6 months or so, I'll make a change or two. 11 of these 21 words are the same thing today as they were in 2008 when I developed it. So half have changed. The idea we have to earn your loyalty, it's the same thing with immigration. Earn citizenship. Earned anything. If you've earned it, you deserve it, and we will give it to you. When you show effort and good intent, they will support you. Do a couple more, then we're going to switch to education. 2 more slides. This is continuous improvement. And I don't care which one of these phrases you use, right path, right moves, right foundation, doesn't matter. This indicates that you're heading in the right direction. And no matter what business you are in this room, with all the negativity and with all the cynicism and skepticism, you can't claim that you've succeeded. What you can claim is that you've moved forward, that you're heading in the right direction. Don't overclaim and underdeliver, and this is how to do that. And one more here. My favorite mission statement, and I can't get anyone to use it. And I don't know why, because we've tested this again and again, and I want someone to steal it. I want some big Fortune 500 company to take it. The idea of continuous improvement, believe in better. Whether you're in real estate or finance or medicine or the delivery of health, it's the commitment to continuous improvement that matters. That tomorrow I'm going to do it a little bit better than today, and next week I'll be even better than tomorrow. We don't expect you to be number one. We'd like it, but we don't demand it. What we do demand is that you're better and that people can see that improvement, and this is the perfect communication of that. Total commitment, that says you're about the consumer or the shareholder, the employee. Total alignment says you're on the same side. And we talked about no excuses. That's perfection. So now let's go, we're going to do education, and that'll be the last part of this presentation. At least you can say this, if I'm boring you. At least I've tried more than any other presenter to show you what you want to see. Wow, you pulled it up fast. Any question on that one before I go to education? Let's keep going. Next. Okay, we are pessimists. We actually believe that we will find signs of life on Mars. I actually wanted to ask the question, will we find signs of intelligent life in Congress? But the client didn't want me to be so argumentative. This is how pessimistic we are about the future of our schools. This is how negative we are. Next. I need you to change. I know I've got education reform advocates in this room. Stop with education reform. It is the lowest priority. We either want education excellence or effective education. I don't care which one of those 2 words, phrases you use, or effective education excellence. Education reform is what? Process. Excellence in education is the result. Please, let's change the context by how we communicate education. Next. Also, this idea of reform or change, we got to change schools, is meaningless. It's value neutral. They don't want change, they want better, they want improvement, they want success. So education reform is merely doing it differently, and that is the least effective way to communicate. Next. Of all the ways to communicate, and these are the different arguments of the different organizations. Modernizing schools came in at 6%, blended learning at 7%, safer learning environment at 8%, small class sizes 11%, equal opportunity, the civil rights argument at 18%, 49%, more than all the other ones combined. It's about the skills to live in the real world. It's all about being prepared for college, career, and life. If you talk about the learning environment, that's merely what is happening. If you talk about preparation, true preparation, that's about the outcome. I beg you, because we have to be successful in this. You focus on outcomes, not how to get there. Focus on what life will be like when we get there. Next. You cannot start your presentation. Who are education reform people in here? Who's involved in this at all? I know you guys are. Okay, I thought there'd be more. Damn, I thought there'd be more. Don't start with our schools stink. Don't start with our kids are being left behind. Please don't start with the negative. Because if you start with the negative, they won't hear the positive. They will tune out and turn off. If you start with a positive and you define success and then explain why we haven't gotten there, then they want to hear the solution. Then they want to hear what your result is. And your call to action shouldn't be negative. Because you want parents and grandparents, and by the way, the strongest relationship between human beings is not husband and wife. It's not mother-daughter or father-son. It's grandparent-grandchild, because they both have the same enemy. Do you want to explain it? That call to action, if it is positive, will connect. They'll see the negative, they'll see the problem, they'll see the solution, and it works much better than just starting with the negative. Next. I wanted to have it on one slide. A single, in essence, paragraph, and there's certain words here. Every child. And that means every child, and you actually stop. Every child, comma, and that means every child. No matter where they live, no matter what their financial situation is, no matter what challenges they face, every child means every child, because you have to make it universal. An effective education, it is not an education. It's an education that works. Effective communicates that you have succeeded. You need that extra word. Prepares them for success. That's the positive. That's the vision for the future. They get the knowledge, critical thinking, and decision making. And by the way, I will tell you bluntly, told a couple of political jokes. This knows no partisan division. If we lose Common Core, and it's badly named, but if we lose Common Core in this country, if the kids in Mississippi are taught differently than the kids in Massachusetts, then that means that the kids in Mississippi will not have the same opportunities as the kids in Massachusetts. Common Core is not ideological. Common Core is not a conspiracy according to the teachers' unions, and it's not what Glenn Beck says it is. They're both wrong. Common Core is about an outcome, that your children will be able to read and write and add and do math and be able to think in the 21st century. We're getting our clocks cleaned by other countries right now because our kids don't even have the basics. And we have politicized Common Core on the left, on the right, and it's a disgrace. Critical thinking, decision making, these are essential components to education, and our kids need to know it. Prepared for college careers and life. Why? Because 40% still don't go to college. We need the best electricians. We need the best technicians. We don't necessarily need people with master's degrees. In a lot of states, if you're a good electrician or auto mechanic, you make more money than a mediocre lawyer, and good for them. We need all of this. This is the only place where the word universal actually works. And then at the bottom, it's real measurable improvement. Once again, it's got to have that measurement for us to know that it's correct. Next. It has to be about the children. It's not about the teachers. It's not about the process. If you're not mentioning kids in your statement as you communicate, you're failing them. Next. And I need you to go further. I know you're here at Milken, which means, like, if you guys had open heart surgery, it would take longer just to find your heart. I know that there's not as much emotion in here, that there's intellect. I need your heart to show. If you just talk about students, that doesn't connect to them, as well as asking them to imagine that your child, imagine your grandchildren, imagine the kids you see playing outside. Instead of children, it's the kids who are walking to school. Instead of teenagers, it's the ones who's babysitting. You have to personalize, individualize, and humanize education. Next. I know we only have 5 minutes, so I'll get done. Accountability. Don't lose it. Teachers hate hearing it. They get resentful. If you actually do a session where you talk about instilling accountability, watch the reaction of teachers. Their body language is just like yours. Their arms will get folded up, their back will go up like this because they'll think you're attacking them. Without accountability, we don't have success. Without measurements, we can't tell how well we're doing. We cannot lose these. Next. And it's the #1 value. Among moms, it's the highest. Among those who are the most active politically and overall, Accountability is what the public wants in schools, so give it to them. This is why charter schools work so well. Who here's from New York? Your mayor is trying to destroy schools that are more successful and have helped more people than any of its kind. I don't get it. And the kids and the parents stood up and said no, and he's actually backed away. But it's going to take an effort from you all to keep, and I'll tell you something, if we lose those kids, you're not going to want to hire them. You're not going to want to employ children that cannot read, that cannot write, that cannot communicate, that can't stand here without saying and ah. It's for your own good that we do this. Next. Keep going. My 21 words for you. I have this on every issue. If anyone's interested, no matter what topic you do, I've got 21 word slides because it's such an easy way to present it. And because I have the same meal every day, spaghetti bolognese. I eat at the same restaurant, I watch the same shows, and I do the same process. The words are different, but it's easy this way. You cannot be a great country without great schools. We have to educate children for the real world, for real life situations. The current system isn't working. It's a simple sentence. I'll ask you guys another question. How many of you believe that overall our public school system in the country is working? Who believes it's working? Raise your hands. Who believe it's not working? Raise your hands. Look around. It's a simple statement that communicates what most people believe. And by the way, close to 70% believe it's not working. We want our kids to be intellectually challenged, but what we want most in teachers, inspiring and motivating more than anything else. Next slide. This will be the last one. So these are the 13 phrases that we've been working on to communicate this issue. Does anyone have any questions? And by the way, I do want to recognize, and I apologize for doing this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Lorene Powell has been incredibly active in trying to figure out a way to navigate the political waters on the left and on the right to ensure that our kids get the education that they deserve. And so we get a next generation that is more ready for real life. And I want to recognize her for a second. If you can just stand up. She's done more in education than anyone I've worked with, and she won't stand. I'll leave this slide up. What can I answer for you? Yes. And let a microphone get to you. You got 3 minutes.
Was there anything about No Child Left Behind that could be used now?
Was there anything about No Child Left Behind that can be used now? It's funny because the phrase was so powerful when it was first brought forward, and now it's been so poisoned that you can't use it. That's where you get to every and all. And those are two words that are essential with education. Every child, all communities. That's how you communicate universal. But the phrase itself has been lost, and I would recommend that you not use it. And even the elements of Leave No Child Behind have come under such significant criticism. Here's the amazing thing about Common Core. If you ask people, do they support it or not, by a small plurality, they're not sure. But you then read to them exactly what it is, and support's close to 80%, because no one actually knows what it is. Couple more? Yes, sir. Hold on for the microphone, and we'll do one more, and then we'll stop. Okay, just yell.
And what I've noticed is that a lot of the funding for public school education here seems to come on a local basis from the real estate taxes. Doesn't that ensure that lower socioeconomic neighborhoods continue to have lower dollars spent on in public education? Because
our taxes, local taxes fund education, doesn't that ensure that you're going to have problems with lower socioeconomic levels? The answer is yes. Here's the problem. We believe education is a local issue. Fundamentally, we don't want Washington involved in it. We want states and localities to do it, which is why the tax system often funds it. If we're going to decide on a local level what our schools should be like, then let the local communities decide what taxes they should levy. But as you say, it has caused a problem, particularly in urban areas, that is going to need to be addressed. If we can get the accountability, we can address the problems of funding. Last question. And don't go, because I want to say one thing, and we'll be done in 90 seconds. Can you turn her microphone on?
Can you just tell us why the word accountability keeps on coming up in education and business and healthcare and government?
The question is, why does the word accountability keep coming up in all these different issues? In education, business, and politics. It's because we think politicians say things to us that they don't really mean. It's because we think the business community makes promises to us that it cannot keep or won't keep. And it's because we think in education that there's no way to make a change without having some sense of accountability. It is that part of our negativity, our pessimism, our cynicism, and accountability is our response to it. Okay, things have gone wrong, we've turned negative, but with accountability, we might be able to turn things around. It is the essence of hope that is uniquely American, wrapped around cynicism that unfortunately has now also become uniquely American. This is a very special conference, and I really wanted to try to give you language that'll be helpful to you in all the things that you do. You know that the public has greater faith in you, in the business community, and in science and technology than politicians by almost 3 to 1. You're not just here to learn, you're here to do. You're here to create, you're here to innovate, you're here to invent. For those of you here who are entrepreneurs, my hat is off to you because you're making a difference in the quality of life of people. Use this conference, go to sessions that you otherwise would not go to, listen to speakers that you otherwise would not hear, open your minds and don't fall into the trap that so many of my focus groups do, which is they only listen to people they agree with, they only do things that come easy to them, and then they have a less interesting, a less engaging world. Thank God for Mike Milken. Thank God for the Milken Global Conference, and I appreciate your time today. Thank you very much.